Real Life Media, it's your girl, Christy Salazar, and I am here on the set of Mirror, Mirror, a Luckystrike Films movie coming to you soon. And I'm super excited because when we talk about people I've been wanting to interview, Noel G is on my list and at the top of my list. So I'm super excited to have Mr. Noel G. How are you?
What up, what up?
What up, what up? See, I love his laid-back chillness. So
I'm like, let me slip you 100, you know? I'm at the top of the list. I'm like, dang, man, I'm put a...
He definitely is. And the reason for that is, I love that you have been such a staple in the industry for our Latino community. You guys may have known, you've seen him on Training Day, on Fast and Furious 7, Lowrider, the Mules recently launched. So tell me a little bit about, being in this industry so long. So you're kind of like in the Latina Oprah seat right now. So we're going to go kind of deep, right?
All right, go ahead. Dig. I'm with it.
All right. So tell me a little bit about how you got started.
Literally just being at the right place at the right time. Okay. I was with some girl and she wanted to be an actress. Mm-hmm. And so I never thought about it. And one day she asked me to go with her to this acting class. And I was like, yeah, whatever. I'll go check it out. And I was literally right there, right place, right time. There was a producer who was sitting in class who was scouting out talent. Mm-hmm. And I was cracking jokes because when I was in the class, I thought it was a little like comedian. Whatever. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I just thought it was kind of like, I wasn't into it. You know what I mean? So I was being like the interruption of the class.
Oh, okay. Back to elementary school, or junior high.
Whatever you want to call it, yeah. And then it was kind of crazy. Like there was this guy who was sitting in there and he comes up to me after the class and he's like, hey, you're kind of funny. You want to be in a Taco Bell commercial? Mm-hmm. And I thought he was like on some BS at first, right? But ended up being real. Next thing I know, I did a Taco Bell commercial 2 weeks later. And I was on set and then I started getting all these like residual checks. But at the time, I didn't know what residual checks was. Like I thought it was a computer mess up. Like I didn't know.
So you thought they were sending you like replacement checks?
I thought they were like, I thought like the computer messed up and I kept on getting paid. I didn't really know what was up, At that time, I was ignorant. I thought it was like you have to work to get paid, work to get paid. I didn't know it was like you could work one day in your life and keep on getting all these checks like that, right?
One of the perks of the industry.
I was like, dang, that's how it works. You know what I mean? So I called up homeboy and I said, hey, why I keep on getting all these checks? And he broke it down to me. He explained. He's like, oh, that's legit. Like that's. I was like, what?
Like it's not a mistake.
Yeah. I was like, well, damn, I want to be an actor if that's how it works. You know what I mean? And so he hooked me up with a manager friend, and then I just been doing acting ever since.
So that Taco Bell got you in.
That Taco Bell got me in. Yeah. Wow. That was at 15 years old.
That is amazing. And when I look at your story and I look at the longevity you've had in this industry, because you've been acting for how many years?
About 30 years.
And I look at that, and in an industry that's ever changing, and the market's always changing, there's new faces, you being such a staple in this industry, why do you think that has been?
Why I keep on working?
Like why do you think that you've been able to be so solid in this industry?
Because I got low friends in high places, you know what I mean? And that's just how I'm playing. That's how it goes down. Yeah, it's always someone else who knows someone else. You know what I'm saying?
The power of networking.
Right. But it's funny though, when I started, like there wasn't Instagram, Facebook, there was TV was black and white when I started, like I've done some stuff with Alfred Hitchcock. That's how far I go back. But I did silent film, you feel me?
Yep.
But
Charlie Chaplin style?
Yeah, exactly. I think I got a film with him. But it's in the archives.
There you go.
But no, it's just crazy because I think it's just about relationship, and it's hard though sometimes because you can't keep up with everybody, because every set you work on, it's a new family, a new face, a new person. So it's hard, but I try to be the best I can about that, about keeping in touch with people. I try to keep relationships the best I can to, keep things moving forward. But I would just say, one of the things that keeps me working is it's always about, sometimes too what your brand is. So like if someone always is like, oh, that's a humble guy, it's a nice guy, and so I've learned to be nice to everybody on set. You know what I mean? I don't care if you're the craft service person or the PA person or the director or the executive producer. Like, I'm going to treat you the consistent. Same. You know what I mean? So I think that's one thing that kept me kind of working and, stay busy. Yeah. So.
And, and going back to, when you started, I know that, I've read your story and, we have a very close friend in common, Miles.
Yeah, that's my boy. That's my people right there.
So, when you were talking to him, going back in your story, you talk about a point where your dad came and he pretty much had given you $500 and you were 13 years old. and you were released into this world on your own.
Well, he left. He left. My dad left. Yeah.
Tell me a little bit about that moment in your life.
It was kind of crazy, you know, because I'm trying to like cut out the fat here or whatever, but up to the age of 13, like I had a middle class home, like everything was straight, you know. I had like clothes on my back, food on the table, toys in my room.
Traditional family.
I was living, you know, good. And then my dad just hated life. He was always miserable. He was just a hardworking man. You know, his life was work, television. And one day, I guess he just got fed up. You know, he saw an opportunity. He had the chance. He took it. And he pretty much, like I said, gave me $500 and said, I'm out. And, you know, that was a crazy time in my life, you know, because I don't blame my mom. That's a part of the story I never really get to tell because I call it the 2 weeks of hell because like my dad, he started like selling everything in the house, putting everything in storage, put the house up for sale. But my mom was like fighting for him to stay. But my mom was a house cleaning lady and my dad was the breadwinner of the family. So he made all the cash flow, you know what I mean? And,
so it was basically, you know, he was the one that was the breadwinner. He was financially supporting the family overall, correct?
He made all the money, period.
Okay.
Yeah. And then, but my mom, man, like my mom always wanted to like put me in sports and like see me do things. And my dad was a little stingy with his money to keep it 100, you know. So my mom, she would go to work so she could pay for the things that he wouldn't pay for me. So, you know, my mom was,
for you, man.
oh, then my mom's like, pure, like 100 strong, you know, old school. And my mom, when my dad was leaving, my mom would like tell my dad, like, what the hell's wrong with you? What are you thinking? What type of man are you? I don't even know you anymore. And like, she was fighting for him to stay. Like, how can you do this? And so I went up to my mom and said, hey, check this out. I got a place to live. Don't worry. Go with my dad. Because I knew if my mom would have stayed, it would have been 2 homeless people instead of 1. So
you knew she was stable with him. So you released her to say,
I didn't know if she was stable or not. I was just thinking, I don't want my mom to be homeless. You know what I mean? So she bounced out. And but I don't blame her for nothing because, again, it would have been, you know, 2 homeless people instead of 1. So I wanted that for her. But that was a crazy time.
And what did you do? You know, being 13 and on the streets, where are you sleeping? Like, what were you doing?
Well, for the first 2 months, it was crazy because I was breaking into my own house that I used to live in because I knew how to get in through the bedroom window. So a house that was once
and
furnished,
no one was in there yet. No one was in there.
I'm gonna tell you what happened. So the house was once furnished, had all the furniture in there, everything was straight, right? I would break into a house now with nothing but carpet in there, period, right? But I knew how to get in because that was my own house. So I knew how to get in through the sliding glass window or through the bathroom window. That's how I used to get in. But the time I had to get out was I was in there one time and I saw a phone that was connected in the kitchen. So I knew some people were there while I was gone. And I picked up the phone and it was a dial tone. And I was like, all right, now it's time to go. And that's kind of where the journey started.
And then where did you go from there?
To the streets. I was hanging out with my homeboy Carlos, nicknamed Sparky. He kind of took me in, and then I kind of just started
kind of couch surfing,
for a long time. And then there was places where I slept in like laundromats, donut stores, didn't have a place to sleep. Like it was crazy. What were you
thinking at that point though? Because you know,
the only thing I was thinking was
so young.
The only thing I was thinking at that time was money, and I gotta eat. That's all I really cared about at that time.
And then show us how that journey changed because you got introduced to someone who their father was a pastor. Is that correct?
Yeah, that was my girl at the time. And one day she asked me this question. She said, how come you always wear the same clothes or I never seen where you live? So I ain't going to front. You know, I broke down. I started crying at that time. I told her straight up. I said, look, I'm 15. My parents left me. I go, this is what it is. So she was like, come to my house, talk to my dad. I was like, okay. And then the dad, it was funny. Me having no clue, you know, he was a pastor for a church. He didn't tell me that right off the bat. It was just 2 guys talking at first. So I was like, look, I'm homeless. My parents left me. This is what it is. Yeah, I'm dating your daughter. And he was like, you know, I like you. You know, he's like, I could see you have like a good heart, you know. And he's like, I'm going to let you live here. But he's like, if you live here, you got to hear the word of God because in this family, we serve God. And I'll be real, you know. I just said whatever because he could have been Muslim for all I know. I would have been like, not that I judge any. I'm just saying he could have been whatever, you know, Church of Scientology, atheist. I didn't care. I just wanted.
It was a room and a roof over your head.
So I just said, all right, cool, man. I'll live with you. So I started living with this family, and that's what it was, you know. And that was the first time ever in my life because my parents were always cool, like as far as like standard wise, like come in when the street lights are on.
Okay.
You know, don't
Don't
do
be
right,
running the
don't steal,
streets.
don't, you know, that type. But I never ever heard about God in my life until I was 15.
And how was it when you were introduced to that, when you were now put in this atmosphere where God was such a focus of the environment and of the family? How do you feel that affected you or changed?
It changed me a lot, you know, because it was a time where I saw like a real loving father, a loving family. You know, it was not that my family wasn't loving, you know. My dad was kind of like a light switch. I don't even know how to explain it. It was literally like black and white, on and off. You know, when this happened, it was like, I mean, I've already seen him be miserable, you know, when he was always mad, like a mad guy. But
Like mad at life?
yeah, just mad. Just I think pissed off he always had to work, and pissed off he was always, you know, he just wasn't a happy dude. But when I was living with this family, the way that I saw them, like they would pray for dinner. It was like going into a whole nother world of something I'd never seen before. But the love was so like, you know,
enriched and entwined in everything that they probably had in their environment.
Yeah, and I just felt it, you know, and so it was really cool for me. It was really cool for me.
And how was it, you know, so now you're immersed in this environment where God is forefront, the center, and, you know, now you're in an industry, you know, where you're in an industry where everything is so different. You know, how has your faith played a role in where you're at in this industry? Let's keep it real. Like, let's keep it real. Like, is
that's
it?
all I ever went
I know,
to.
100%. That's why I love it. It's just like, you know what, like, because, you know, so many people, it's like, you know, you're in this industry, and this industry is saturated with so much opportunity,
right?
You know, good and bad. Right, you know, right. And being a person of strong faith, how do you hold on to that in your projects and into your overall environment? There had to be moments where you felt like, okay, you know, like, I got this now, God, thank you. You know, because sometimes we as humans, we feel like that. Like, God gives us a little bump and he blesses us in a certain way, and then we're kind of like, okay, God, I got you, thank you. You know, now I can focus on my own. I got this from here. And I mean, I know that personally for myself, you know. So how do you feel that your faith has played in this overall journey that you've had in this industry?
Yeah, no, I got you. It's hard. I ain't gonna lie. In this industry, you know, it's one of the hardest things ever. Like, again, I don't judge. I'm no one to judge. I never claim perfect. I try to be the best that I can be as a person, you know, as a man or whatever. The way that I like to say it is, you know, I'm a better man with God in my life than with no God at all in my life. You know what I'm saying? So I try my hardest, but in this industry, you know, it's real difficult because sometimes you're put into circumstances or certain, you know, choices that you have to make, and there's certain things that, you know, I wouldn't do. You know, for example, like I wouldn't play a gay role. Okay. You know, and again, I don't have nothing against gay people, whatever.
You just won't play that role.
I just won't play that role. You know, it's against what we believe in as a Christian or whatever. But it's just kind of crazy because this industry, you know, you go against the wave when we're serving God. You know, you don't go with the flow because I don't know. It's a hard question. I'm trying to like really figure out how to.
It is true though, because you go against the flow. I think you go against the grain. And a lot of people, like you said, you don't judge anyone. And I think that's where it comes to the point where you have to really stand on who you are and what you.
And I was just giving one example of what I wouldn't do that's against, you know, belief or whatever, stuff like that. So those are kind of the hard choices that you get thrown into that you have to, you know what I mean, have to make sometimes. Like I did, for example, like I did this horror movie, and it's a pretty big horror movie. It's pretty well known, you know, The Purge. I did The Purge Part 2.
I love all of them.
Yeah, and I don't know, are you Christian?
I am.
Are you saved?
I am.
Okay, cool. So that's what's up. But you know, I keep it 100. When I did The Purge, I came against a lot, you know, because they were like, how can you do a horror movie being a Christian? And you know, I had to deal with that. Not that I care. I do what I do and whatever, but it was kind of funny because in that movie, believe it or not, I was shown actually something very crazy by God. I believe that number one is I was a light in the dark. There was no one on that set that was saved other than myself. And so when I was on that set, I was kind of like, this is where God needs to be. And so it was funny. Like I was trying to talk to some of the big people, and it's kind of funny. Like we have to be kind of careful of, you know, how we speak to people and know our position in life and our place, because people might look up to you, and you might look up to other people that are above you. But the people that look up to you, you're like the wow factor, like someone else might be the wow factor to you. But the people that might be the wow factor to you might not want to give you time on day of what it is you want to say, or you know, they like, I don't need to hear you because I'm up here. But the people down here want to hear you all day long because you're like the it to them. You get what I'm saying?
I get it 100%.
So when I was on set, it was kind of funny. The reason why I'm trying to like set it up like that, would not set it up, but it was just real, is I was trying to talk to like some of the big people, and I realized like they just weren't giving me time of day. Like they weren't really giving me their ear. It was like, I could care less what you have to say. It was like, you're just an actor in the movie, whatever. But then there was other people on set that were like, you're Noel G. Yeah. Like you were on Training Day and Fast and the Furious.
They got it.
And so to them, I was the wow factor. But it was funny because I was able to mentor to them the Word of God. And that's what I did. So I brought 4 people to God, 4 people through me.
By being on that set.
By being on that set. You know what I mean? And so I think, like, here's the best way I can explain it. I've been at the same church because I'm very, like, loyal, you know, like, once I pick a church and a pastor, like, there. That's it, right? So this is what got me about my pastor. You know, we all learn through experience, right? But what got me about my pastor was I was at my church for like 6 months, and I remember in the front there was all these guys that were sitting in suits, and every now and then one would give the message, one would do an offering, one would do the announcements. And one day I asked my pastor, I said, hey, who are all these guys who sit up in the front? Like, what's their deal, you know? And he said, these are all pastors who fell to sin. They all had a church at one time, and one fell to drugs, one fell to adultery, one fell to this, one fell to that. And they once had a big church, but they lost their church to sin. The congregation turned their back on these pastors. But he goes, I'm known as one of the pastors in the congregation to not turn my back on them, restore them. And yes, there's a form of discipline before they go back out. But once they go through that form of discipline and they think they're ready again, whether it be 2 years, 3 years, or 4 years, they should have a second chance to go be a pastor again and start over, because that's what Jesus would do.
To restore them to their position.
Exactly. But Christians will talk so much about forgiveness the hardest, but sometimes they're the worst at it. And Hollywood is more forgiving than Christians. In Hollywood, you can go do drugs, you could go cheat, you could go murder someone.
And we welcome you with open arms.
And they'll put you in a damn movie, pay you $1 million and make you a star.
That is so true.
But as a Christian, they'll turn your back on you so quick because you did this. Now you ain't nothing no more. You can't run a church no more, and you're out the game. And to me, I think that's completely wrong. So what got me about my pastor is like, because that's how God's love is. You know, God's love is unconditional. Is unconditional and has so much grace. And God's a God of multiple chances. Your whole life is one chance to go to heaven or hell. But in that life, you get multiple chances. So I believe that, you know, if you have a big church and let's say you fell to sin, yes, there should be a form of, you know, maybe punishment or discipline or whatever. But I believe that you can get restored. You can be disciplined for 2, 3, 4, or 5 years, or however long the restoration takes. And then at the end of the day, you should be able to go back out there and give it another try and still continue to bring, you know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I totally understand.
So I just, it's things like that, you know, that
like
that
you saw
Hollywood
the grace you saw the grace that was given. You know, you saw the grace that was given to a place of restoration. And I think that's important because everyone deserves second chances. And I
third
think
chances,
third
fourth
chances, fourth chances. I know I'm on my 9th chance probably. But I mean, you know what I mean?
I'm on my 50th.
Like, you know what I mean? Like, I really just feel like, you know what, and that's where I think so many people get it wrong because they get caught up in the religion aspect of it. But it's the relationship. Because once you have that, you understand there's a grace over your life. You know what I mean? That doesn't give you the get out of jail card. But what that does is that allows you to have a confidence within yourself. And I truly believe that we're in a day and an age now where God is really choosing to put people in the industry that can be that light. Because there is someone maybe on set that needs to know that. Or there's someone that's struggling. We're in an industry where people have many dark times. You know, rejection is really big in this industry. And a lot of times people show up to set and they're discouraged. Or maybe they're trying, you don't know what they're dealing with. But you being that light on that set allows for that presence to be there. Even if it's just nonverbal. and it's in the way you carry yourself, you know? So I just feel that the industry needs people like you, people who are changing the game because of who they are and what they stand solid on, you know? And I think that the world needs more love right now. You know?
Yeah, no, I get it.
They do. They need a lot of love and a lot of grace. Yeah. You know what I mean? So I think that is a key foundation of making it in this industry is you got to stand for something. You got to know what you stand for, you know, because if you don't stand for something, you'll fall for anything.
Yeah, no, I get it.
So where do you see yourself? Like, let's tell me this role that you're playing in Mirror Mirror. Okay. So what was it about this role that got you? Like, what did you feel connected to?
No, I got to be 100% on that. You know, when they approached me, they didn't really tell me what the movie was about just yet. Okay. I didn't even find out about it until I was at the table read. So when this first happened, they came at me and they gave me like a little bit of the premise, you know?
Like a synopsis of it?
Yeah, synopsis or whatever. And so then when I went to the table read, that's when I found out, like, oh, okay, cool. Okay. You know what I mean? So that's kind of how that started. But now that I know what the role is, you know, I believe it's a good movie with a good message, and you know, I hope it does good. You know what I mean?
Definitely.
All we can do is make them and put them out there. You know, everyone thinks they have a golden goose egg, but you never know until it's finished. And
support is key.
People
you know,
watch it or not or what. You know, support's a big part of it, but there's also a business side to it too.
Oh,
that has to be, you know,
is it in the right market? Is it in the right?
Carefully dealt with, but yeah, I mean, support is a big part of it, though.
Where do you see yourself in 10 years?
I don't know. I don't really say it like that. 10 years, 5 years, 1 year. You know, I just see myself today and what I'm doing now. I know where I have like goals where I want to go and goals that I'm hoping to reach. Okay. But, you know, I don't really say that because I could die, you know, later on today or tomorrow. You know what I mean? So I just kind of go with the flow and whatever happens.
What's on that goal list?
But of course, I do have goals and stuff like that. Well, I I gave myself like a saying of what I want to kind of achieve, right? So to consistently and abundantly manifest the kingdom of God throughout the world for Jesus Christ through TV and film. Nice. So that's kind of like my saying that I have to, you know.
That's your focus.
Yeah, that's my focus, you know, because I want to, you know, hopefully have a youth ministry and, you know, I want to start with the kids because I believe that's where the seeds need to be planted and stuff like that. So I got a couple goals that I'm, you know, reaching for, and to make like non-corny Christian movies. You know what I'm saying? I want my movies to be a little rugged and ragged, and where you're watching it, and you might even question whether or not is it for God.
You're like, where is it in here?
Yeah, it's just my opinion. We all got them. You know what I'm saying? To each his own. But I believe we have a lot of corny, excuse my French here, corny ass Christian movies, and I'm just so sick of it. Like I watch some of these movies, and I just like.
You want the realness.
And once you tell people, too, it's a Christian movie, you already wiped out half your audience on the audience that you might have needed to catch. You feel me? So I want to make some rugged You
want films that are going to be able to
it might be 95% worldly and just 5% God. I might just, you know, like a knockout punch in the end. You know what I mean?
Yeah, so, sometimes those are the best.
Yeah, and I feel like, you know, like you got to show a movie like when sin is sin, that's sin. And that's what you get in sin life. But when the glory of God is the glory of God, that's what you get in the glory of God life. You know what I mean? And show the two, like, that's the real there, that's the real there. Now make your choice. Because at the end of the day, it's free will and we all get to make our own choice if you want to go right or left, you know? So
do you see yourself stepping into like that director role, producer role? Like, do you want to get into that element?
Yeah, you know, sometimes there's the saying where you got to do what you got to do until you can do what you want to do.
Yeah.
So right now I'm still at that point where I'm kind of doing what I got to do until I can do what I want to do.
Okay.
But, you know, I feel like it's slowly coming. You know, I got a movie I just produced last year, and I feel good about it. So I'm hoping that's the one that might kind of kick off the journey.
Was that the Ditch Party?
No, that's one of them. But this horror movie I did with Rampage.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's my new joint. So, and then I'm working on a third one. But, you know, things like that hopefully take me in the direction where I'm really trying to go, you know, because that, like Ditch Party, I just be honest and straight up, like Ditch Party and the movie I did, the horror movie I did, that's not really what I wanted to do. Okay. But, you know, I always make a joke where it's either the way one thing that I've been blessed with is, so I'll just give this quick short story, keep it really quick. I was going to my church for a year and 3 months. Never did anything but went to church and went home and lived my own life. Went to church, went home and lived my own life. one day my pastor comes up to me after a year and 3 months of faithfulness of just going to church, doing my thing, and again, just going home. He comes up to me and he goes, hey, you've been here for a year and 3 months. And he goes, I have a vision. He goes, I want to put you on a flyer and I want to have you share your testimony. And I want to help try to grow the church a little bit. And I said, yeah, sure, let's do it. So we did it. It was a good turnout. You know, we got some new church members in. It was a real great thing or whatever. Calls me up a week later and he goes, 3 other pastors saw that you shared your testimony in my church, and now they want to book you at their church as a speaker to do the same thing. So before you know it, I got to travel pretty much all over the United States sharing my testimony, right? And that's how that got started. But my point in that is I got a big blessing in that. When I went from church to church to church, and I got to see how they do theirs and how they do theirs and how they do theirs and how they do theirs, I got to see how a lot of events were put on and how they were thrown.
The production of it.
Yeah, and I got to see what works and what doesn't work. So you got a beast in the church, Pastor. I told him, I go, man, I went out there and got all the knowledge.
I got all the information.
Yeah, I'm like, I got all the knowledge for you. I'm going to come back and bring this
I'm changing the game now.
I'm going to change the game. I'm going to bring it back to the spot, right? And so my point by saying all that was saying, like, bottom line is, just honest, is great events, because I always say good is the enemy of great. Good, okay, cool, but I want to do great. Yeah. You know what I mean? I always want things
Why settle for good when it can be great?
Exactly. And so I say good is the enemy of great. So the bottom line is, what I've seen is you just cannot do a great event without money. Yeah. Like, period. Yeah. You need
the resources.
You need it. You know, unless you're the it thing and everybody just wants to do a favor for you for free, then hey, go girl, handle. You know what I'm saying? But I'm not there yet. You know, I could pull a favor here and there,
but the resources are so important.
But and resources a lot of the times come with money, you know, and sometimes people don't want to do nothing if you're not well known, if you're not big enough to mess with things like this, and it sucks and it's unfortunate, but it is what it is. It's just when you're easier. When you're more so a little bit more known on whatever level, but you're more known, it's just kind of funny. Things are they're
a little bit more seamless because people want to attach themselves
and more handed to you, right? Exactly. So my point that I was making is that I always made this joke, right? The only way your dream is going to happen is you get a millionaire who believes in you and says, "Here's your $1 million check, go make it happen," or you make your own damn things and you make it happen.
There you go.
So Ditch Party and the horror movie were not really my heart. Of course, I'm going to put heart into it because it's part of the production. So I'm going to do it as righteously as I can and the best job that I can. But the real reason why I did it is to hopefully get me where I want to be, so I don't have to do all that.
It was the stepping stone to what you really want to do.
Exactly. And so that's kind of the journey that I'm on right now, you know, headed towards the goals of what's next and what can really happen.
And how do you, like, what would be an advice you would give to someone in this industry, you know, just coming into the industry? What is something, like some game-changing nugget that you hold close to you that you would say has worked for you?
I always tell people, you know, the only way you can fail in life is if you quit in life. So I tell them never to quit. You know, it took me 8 years to get my first movie. And I always think, like, man, if I would have quit on my 6th year, my 7th year, where would I be? You know, I'd be working at, you know, some other job or be in jail or whatever. So I trip out on that one. You know, it took me 8 years. So what I really tell people is the number one key to business, in any business, whether you work at a restaurant, here, there, whatever, is personal relationships, you know? So try to make as many personal relationships as you can. And I have like a little gimmick in that, you know? You don't want to be that guy who's like the nuisance, who's always like bothering someone. So what I try to tell people is a little gold nugget is the best thing that I tell people is stay in their face without being in their face, but stay in their face. Okay. So the way that I do it, to give an example of that, is like, say you're a top executive producer of a television network, and I'm trying to get in touch with you because I want you to look at my television show or my movie so you can fund it and I make it, and, you know, we're doing our thing, right? But you're not giving me time of day because we have 1,000 other people reaching out to you, right? So the way that I do it is I'll text you once. Okay. If I don't hear from you for 3 to 4 weeks, then I'll text you again.
The follow-up.
Then if I don't hear from you again for 3 to 4 weeks, I'll text you maybe one more time. If you don't text me back, then I'll text you maybe 2 months later. So I'm there, but I'm not there.
You're not every day.
Because there's some people that are so damn aggressive, they text like 5 times a week, 10 times a week, and you just don't want to talk to that person because they're just too much of a nuisance and a bother. But if you're there and you're not there, but you're kind of there, but you're not, but you are, if that all makes sense.
Yes, it makes sense.
That's going to keep you, because
you're still a
like,
presence.
You're still kind of, and one day that's what worked for me, because that's the way.
There you go.
That I've attacked people, and that's the way that I've got a response. And people, I've had multi-millionaires, I've had top business people tell me like, dude, I like the way you hustle, I like the way you are, because I always knew you were there, but you didn't bug the hell out of me. You weren't nagging. Yeah, I wasn't nagging or come off thirsty or desperate like that. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. So that's kind of my nugget, you know. And I always tell people like this too. Here's the bottom line: you could take 10 actors, line them up against a wall. And you could say, what's your advice? And you'll get that answer. What's your advice? Number 2, and get that answer. Number 3, and the bottom line is you might hear 10 different answers. But if you're asking Noel, gee, that's my answer. And at the end of the day, you got to take whatever best advice you got from the different answers that you got and say, you know what? That's the one that made the most sense to me. That's the one I'm going to go with. And so that's how I tell people, you know, and that's how I've been doing it. And that's how I've been, like, I was clever, and I would use my street tactics in that. So like when I had my agent, for example, a lot of people will get an acting agent, and then they'll sit back and say, okay, cool, I can sit on the couch and I'll wait for the phone to ring. But what I would do is, like, say it was Easter, or let's say it was Martin Luther King's birthday, you know, or Happy Mother's Day. I would send in like a Mother's Day card to my agent, and all I would do is something as simple as this. I would say, let's turn Happy Mother's Day into Happy Agent Day. Noel G.
Oh, that's cute.
And so I would try to be clever like that, you know? So I was always at the top.
Innovative.
And my agents would tell me that. My agents and managers would be like, you know, when it always came to my Latino actors, like, you were always at the top of my head, because I was there, but I wasn't there, but I was there. And so that's, like you said,
you weren't coming across thirsty. You were just saying, I'm a presence, I'm here, I'm ready.
But you still let them know, hey, I'm breathing.
Yeah,
you know, I'm
alive.
There, you know what I mean? But you just can't come off so aggressive is my point. You know?
I agree.
And that's one thing that kept me flowing. You know?
Well, like I said, I am just so honored, because you have been someone I've been wanting to interview. And it has been nothing but a check off my bucket list, inspiring, motivating. But most of all, I wanted people to really get a piece of you, to understand your journey. You know, I think that the more that we understand someone's journey, the more there's a support there. But even more so, I think that we all need people's journeys in our lives to show us what the next level is. How do we get to the next level? You know, whether it's spiritually, mentally, physically, financially. And that's always coming from people who have been in the industry, you know? So thank you so much. I had an amazing time. It was definitely real and raw, like I wanted it.
Yeah, that's the only way I'll get it.
You know what I mean? So I think that was amazing. So again, exclusive with Noel G on the set of Mirror Mirror, a Luckystrike film coming to you. And again, Christy Salazar, Real Life Media. Stay tuned. We have so much coming from this project. And like I said, like he said, you know what? Don't give up. So if you feel like, you know, you're not getting all the callbacks from your auditions or whatever industry you're in, don't give up, because, hey, there's so much more, right?
That's what's up. That's what's up. Just,
if you give up, you will never know.
Just put God first, and the rest will work itself out later.
There you go. Couldn't have said it better. You know what? God's timing is the best timing. So we'll see you soon, Real Life Media. Bye.
Cool.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
It's all good. Thanks for having me.
Fantastic. How did it feel?
Oh, look, yeah, it's cool. It's cool. It's cool. We're just chilling.
Yeah, it was chilling, like we said. Like it was just, you know.